What's up?
The station was literally like 5 minutes. Yeah. You go there and do it.
It's a build on it.
Yeah. Or no. Oh, he's not there. I wanted to sit very badly, so I went to that. We were like that. We were alone. Yeah. Really like, yeah.
Will you be addressing the Stuart Skinner trade? Will you be addressing the Stuart Skinner trade? Yeah. Well, there you go.
You know.
Breaking news, Jason.
I don't know. You might get bumped down because of that.
Hi, my name is Heather Grant, and I'm the media liaison for the Alberta Teachers Association. Thank you for joining us this morning. The Alberta Teachers Association respectfully acknowledges that we are located on Treaty 6 territory, the traveling route, gathering place, and meeting grounds for many Indigenous peoples whose histories, languages, cultures, and traditions continue to influence our vibrant community. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. In a moment, Jason Schilling, President of the Alberta Teachers Association, will provide a statement on our next steps to protect teachers' rights. Once he concludes his statement, he'll answer your questions, starting with those who have joined us here in person today. If you're online and have a question for President Schilling, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen under the React tab. Please state your name and outlet before going ahead. Everyone will have the opportunity to ask a question and a follow-up, and then we'll take any additional questions you may have. For assistance following the availability, you can please reach out to myself, Heather Grant. Now I'd like to welcome ATA President Jason Schilling and hand it over to him.
Well, good morning, everyone. This fall sitting of the legislature will be remembered for all the wrong reasons. In a single session, we watched a government push through bills that stripped teachers of their rights, targeted trans youth, promoted the privatization of public health care, mandated standardized testing for children as young as 5, and gave extraordinary power to themselves as the government. This is not normal. These are not actions of a government listening to Albertans. These were the actions of a government determined to impose its will and to centralize power, no matter the cost. And while each of these bills are equally and deeply disconcerting, 2 carried the most extreme tool available in our democracy. This government used the notwithstanding clause against teachers and against trans youth and their families. Before this year, the clause had never been successfully used in Alberta. Now it has been used 4 times in a single sitting, and always against groups of people this government believed they could overpower. That is not leadership. It is an abuse of authority that sidesteps democratic accountability. We're also seeing a pattern of half stories and convenient explanations offered only after decisions have been made. We saw this in the recent email from Minister Long claiming that teachers needed to be forced back to work because an arbitrated deal might have cost the government millions more. The Minister of Education echoed that message, arguing only elected officials should make financial decisions of this scale. The Alberta Labour's Relation Code, the government's own piece of legislation, speaks directly to arbitration as a possible process to settle collective bargaining disputes when an impasse is reached. Yet, throughout bargaining, we were repeatedly told that the government's offer was based on what was fair, not on what was most affordable. These shifting explanations and narratives confirm what teachers have understood from the beginning, that government speaks in contradictions and hopes Albertans don't notice. But teachers noticed, families noticed, and the public noticed. So today, the association is taking another step to stand up for teachers and the students and the families that they serve. We are filing a Labor Board relations complaint for unfair bargaining practices directed at the Teachers Employer Bargaining Association. We're also filing 61 grievances, one in every bargaining unit across this province. These actions are necessary because the government has attempted to rewrite its own commitments. Throughout the bargaining process, the government repeatedly promised 3,000 new teachers over the next 3 years. They made that claim in media releases, in public statements, and on the floor of the legislature. Ministers Nate Horner and Dimitrios Nicolaides issued a joint statement on August 28th that includes the sentences. We heard their bargaining concerns and carefully considered how we could best support teachers, students, and their classrooms. They have been offered what they've asked for, and they have been offered what we said was needed. They used this to insist that their offer matched the request the ATA made at the bargaining table. They used it to create an illusion of significant new investment in classrooms. But now, after imposing a legislated contract on teachers, the government insists that the phrase net new, which is how the promise was always phrased, simply meant any increase over the prior year, even if those positions were already funded in budget 2025. If that was their interpretation, then nothing was new at all. The 3,000 teachers they pointed to during the bargaining were already announced, already budgeted, and already counted in the 2025 budget in February, a full 8 months before the government legislatively imposed an agreement on teachers. It means that the new teachers Albertans were promised will not be there to reduce the overcrowded classrooms that students still find themselves in. In addition to the bait and switch on Alberta teachers and students, this government purposefully and calculated actions have attempted to create a wedge between teachers and their associations. Comments from government officials publicly questioned the ATA's motives and misrepresented our actions during bargaining. These remarks undermined the association's credibility with members and hindered the association's rights to represent its members. This is not simply a misunderstanding. It is a breach of good faith. It is a misrepresentation that affected the decisions made at the bargaining table and the understanding of Albertans. And teachers will not accept that. We are seeking clear and enforceable remedies, including a declaration that the 1,000 full-time equivalent teachers per year must be funded and hired in addition to the commitments made in the February 2025 budget and in subsequent budget years that follow, along with an order compelling the Teachers Employee Bargaining Association to fulfill their commitments this school year. Teachers have always bargained in good faith. We've always been clear about what students need, and we've always stood firm when the government attempts to blur the truth. This government may be comfortable with half stories and shifting explanations. We are not. We will continue to hold them to their commitments, to their own words, and to the standards Albertans expect and deserve. This government must be held accountable. Our message today is straightforward. Agreements matter, words matter, the truth matters, and we will defend all three. Thank you. I'm now available to take questions.
Jasmine Gamer, Global Edmonton. I guess you kind of mentioned that you file this complaint. I guess a little bit more, just some information on, what happens when that is found and everything like that, those next steps with that come with that complaint.
Well, what will come out of the complaint is hopefully that we hold the government account for what they said. So through the bargaining process, it was 3,000 teachers to be hired above and beyond natural attrition, inflation, and student growth. So these 1,000 teachers should be above what government, in the course of doing their job, should already be doing. So if they needed to hire 800 teachers for attrition, they hire 800 teachers plus the 1,000 teachers above that. We're seeking clarity on that because what was told at the bargaining table and then was commented afterwards seem to be two different things, and we need clarity on that.
You mentioned that, we would seek funding in the upcoming budget, but what is what are you hoping is a realistic timeline for when these things get done?
Well, as soon as possible. I understand that there are processes through the labor board complaint and through the courts and how all of that works. But teachers need solutions and concrete help now. They need programming, they need additional teachers, they need EAs in their schools to address the needs of teachers. So the sooner government moves on this or provides funding for school boards so that they can do the hiring, the better off.
Nicole Healy, CBC News. Is the complaint specifically on the 3,000 teachers? Is that kind of what helps business right now, not necessarily the notwithstanding clause?
Well, the notwithstanding clause, we've launched a legal challenge on that, the injunction and then the merits case after that. So the complaint that we're filing now is specifically on the language around the 3,000 teachers and the understanding of what was said during bargaining and then afterwards.
Connor Hawk, CTV News. Is this, are these complaints enough of a response to what teachers have been through over the last couple of months?
Well, I think using the notwithstanding clause by this government is a draconian overreach by them. They had all sorts of other measures that they could have used to end the strike. They could have bargained in good faith during the process. They could have legislated teachers back and went to arbitration. But clearly it's indicated from an email from another MLA that that wasn't an option that government was going to do. So this is the actions that the government that we can push back in this state of where we are in terms of having this imposed on us legislatively. You've got the legal challenge, you have labor complaints. Everywhere that the government has said that they're going to do something, we are going to hold them to account at every single turn. They're not going to be able to lie or half-truth themselves out of the things that they promise to teachers, to students and their families across this province.
I guess my follow-up is, based on, what we've heard, the email that you were specifically mentioning where, was a completely different reason for some teachers back to work, that was in public at the time, can the ATA trust the government at all?
Well, I don't think the government has shown that a lot of Albertans can trust them. When you have a sitting that just happened in this legislature, something like we've never seen before. The use of the notwithstanding clause against teachers, the use of the notwithstanding clause against some of our most vulnerable people in our society, trans youth and their families, privatizing public health care. Bill 14, giving themselves extraordinary powers where they will not be held accountable. Plus comments by the minister and the premier about the fact that, elected officials are the ones who should make these determinations, not the checks and balances that we have within the court system or the labor board system. I mean, it's hard for teachers to trust this government for their words because this government has devalued, demoralized, and disrespected teachers for years. So government, we will hold them to account, and it's up to them to prove to us that their word is something that we should value.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions here in the room today, so we're going to move online. I've got Stephen, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for doing this. I just wanted to get an update too. I know that some teachers are choosing not to do extracurriculars. I've seen some posts from parents about Christmas concerts not happening this year. From what you're hearing of your membership, what are some of the effects that you're seeing or hearing about in terms of maybe some of these extracurricular programs not going forward right now?
We're hearing from members the fact that this is a government that obviously devalues the work that they do. I've heard the premier and the minister say, oh, we respect teachers, or we value the work that teachers do. Yet the actions that they do afterwards don't reflect that. Then you wouldn't use the notwithstanding clause. You would not strip 51,000 people of their charter rights if you valued them. You would not impose curriculum without resources. You would not put into the Education Act K-3 literacy and numeracy screeners that are unpopular, that teachers say devalue and demoralize students. You wouldn't do these things. So I'm not surprised that my colleagues who are choosing not to give more to the work that the government doesn't value. So I'm not surprised that my colleagues were choosing not to give more to the work that the government doesn't value.
Stephen, did you have a follow-up question?
I am good right now, thank you.
Great, okay, so I've got Felix next. Please go ahead and unmute yourself, Felix.
All right, is it like, is the putting this complaint up to the labor board like outside of the negotiation period, like could it be effective? Is the
Well, yeah, definitely. We realize that there has been a legislated settlement, but that doesn't preclude us from moving forward with complaints of bargaining at that time. We'll have to see how other things play out in terms of the lawsuit and the injunction, but we are able to file all things at the same time.
And follow-up would be, do you know if there's enough like teachers getting like in university to get their degree to like get over like to get the 3,000 teacher more like the 3,000 more teachers, or are they like is the renewing possible basically?
Yeah, well, we know from working with the committees that we have within the association that pre-service programs in Alberta graduate roughly around 1,200 teachers a year. We see a natural attrition of about 1,000 teachers who retire a year, so there will have to be extra work done to attract teachers to this province. to ensure that we have capacity at pre-service programs. Government has shown over the last several years that they've underfunded pre-service programs. Pre-service programs, universities across this province could expand their capacity, but they need government to do that funding and to commit to doing that as well. So there's a lot of other factors here that need to be held into place. We also need to have a government that needs to change its tone. They need to show that they truly do respect and value teachers in this province in order to attract them here to work.
All right, thank you.
All right. DLB, you are next. I'll just ask you to please state your name and your outlet.
Oh, thanks. I hope you can hear me. It's Dean Bennett with Canadian Press. Jason, I want to come at this another way. You talked off the top about changing messages. And yeah, it seemed that it did change a bit when the clause was introduced. It was because of kids' health, kids' safety. That's why they were doing it, because the health of the children was at stake. And in the last week, another reason has surfaced. It was more about how it would cost too much money to allow this to go forward. So I'm just wondering, how do you feel about that? You and 51,000 other Albertans had your rights taken away, and one of the main reasons was it cost too much.
Well, that just shows you the value of things. I mean, if you get shifting sands of explanation from the government, it makes people wonder about the validity of the words that are coming out of the government's mouth. So to say that, oh, well, we have to order teachers back because students are being harmed. Irreparable harm, I believe, was the words that the premier and the minister used. And then after the fact, to say, well, we were worried it was going to cost us too much money to fix the system, when they're the ones who chronically underfunded the system for years. We're the least funded school jurisdiction in all of Canada. That is a choice that is made by this government through its budgeting process, and then they have to fix it. So they don't want to fix the problems that they created in the first time. So they keep changing the story as to why. And we're standing here today to say, not anymore. You need to stand to the things that you committed to through the bargaining process, and we will hold you to account with that.
Yeah. What does this say, though, about a government that equates rights to a bottom line figure? What does that say about how it treats its citizens and what this means for future legislation and future labor negotiations?
Well, it jeopardizes labor negotiations for all Albertans across this province. And we all need to be concerned about how this government is willing to use the notwithstanding clause in a labor relations process when there's other processes available to labor relations if you find yourselves at an impasse. That's why we have the LRB. What does this say about the government in general? Well, I think you're seeing what Albertans have to say about that. You don't get 20 recall petitions going across this province, including the premier of this province, without Albertans being upset by the way that this government has treated them this fall. And that expands beyond education. That expands into healthcare, that expands into AISH, that expands into seniors. And we all are saying to the government that this is not acceptable, and this is not what Albertans are looking for from this government.
Thank you for your question. I've got Catherine next, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. Another thing the education minister said when talking about the dollar figure is that he believes it should be up to elected officials and not an unelected arbitrator. I mean, what do you think this will mean for when the Labor Relations Board does come back with a decision?
Well, I believe that they'll probably say something along the same lines of that. Well, elected officials should be making these decisions. Well, elected officials got us into this problem to begin with. Elected officials made the decision to chronically underfund public education in this province, even though teachers, parents, and others have been saying that we cannot meet the needs of students in our schools. We have court systems, and we have other systems for checks and balances on government so they don't run rucksaw over everybody in the province, which they have done this last sitting of the legislature. We've had the notwithstanding clause imposed 4 times. We have Bill 14, which gives extraordinary powers to the Minister of Justice. So we have to have these checks and balances in a system in order to make our democracy function properly. And what we saw this fall is not only a travesty in terms of democracy, but also with the rights of Albertans.
And I wonder if there's going to be any further action. You did mention the other uses of the notwithstanding clause. What's sort of the plan for some of the other decisions that affect teachers, the changes to pronoun notification, the educational materials, and that sort of thing?
Well, we know that EGAL and Skipping Stones have launched a legal challenge around Bill 27 in terms of the pronoun use. This is highly concerning to members as well. They don't want to out students. They want to be able to handle situations that might arise in their schools in a nuanced and balanced way by talking with parents, the schools, and children. When you start using large, broad pieces of legislation like this, it affects the safety of schools. But the Education Act says you also have to create a safe and caring school. We're worried about the fact that you have to get materials approved by the ministry, that where students have to opt into sexual education, that they're going to miss out in instruction. And so we have seen legal challenges move forward, but of course the notwithstanding clause puts this into jeopardy. The association, members of Provincial Executive Council, just said a week and a half ago at their Provincial Executive Council meeting, passed a motion to seek intervener status in the case that's going on in Saskatchewan, because we recognize the use of the notwithstanding clause around the pronoun use in that province directly affects that here in Alberta. So we will seek ways to make sure that we can have arguments in across Canada around this.
All right, I'm just gonna see if there's anybody in the room who have any additional questions before we go back online to Lane here.
Yeah, I just have one more follow-up, just regarding, obviously we're trying to fill that number for the new teachers, but just with the current climate here in Alberta, I mean, how realistic do you think it is that we can fill that number with new teachers?
Well, ideally, I hope that we can, because teachers need assistance within the classrooms. But hiring new teachers isn't the only solution that we could seek out, which is one of the things that we were bargaining for during that time, a student-teacher ratio with a complexity factor. Those other measures that we can put into place now while we're looking to hire teachers. Am I concerned about whether or not we can fulfill this? Definitely, especially with the tone and the aggression that we've seen from this government towards public education and the people who work there. We continue to see government put in measures and bills that undermine the profession and public education. Another telltale sign will be what happens with budget 2026. Will we still be the least funded school jurisdiction in all of Canada? And we know that MLAs are making budget choices right now. So I only hope that they are actually listening to what Albertans are saying and are making public education the priority in this province that it should be.
Sorry, I just wanted to, do you know exactly when you might be able to let us know about a decision that's been made in these complaint cases?
Well, we're just filing those today, and so we'll have to see how it works through the process. We know that through the injunction and the legal challenge, we've been working with the case management, with the justice. We'll be seeing the injunction go forward towards court at the beginning of March. So we'll get more answers once we get to that point. Right now, we're in the process of getting materials together to ensure that we can make those arguments at that time.
Okay, any other questions here in the room? Okay, I will hand it back over to you, Dane, here. If you can please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thanks for taking my question. Dane Patterson with the Canadian Press. Just sorry, trying to clarify actually the follow-up as well. Just as far as the filing, so you've already prepared documents and you're going to file today, or can you just kind of clarify on if this is kind of still in the process of preparing that?
No, the LRB complaint and the grievances are filed today. The court will be moving forward with case management, which was filed a while ago. And we, through the scheduling and the timing of that, we will see the injunction go to court at the beginning of March.
Sorry, my audio just cut out there a little bit. Did you say it was filed today or will be filed today?
Was filed today.
Okay, awesome. And just as a follow-up question, just wondering if you can tell me, how you feel about a school principal being attacked by Angela Pitt for the recall petition?
It was an interesting way to counter the argument of a citizen saying that they were unhappy with the work that the MLA was doing and to evoke a recall. Teachers are citizens of this province. They might have stripped away our rights around bargaining through Bill 2. They didn't strip away our voice. They didn't strip away the fact that we have opinions about things that should be done in this province. And I think we need to be very mindful of the fact when elected officials like MLAs target individuals within our society. That is an unfair imbalance in terms of power. MLAs hold greater power than the average citizen. And when they turn around and they put those targets on those citizens, they need to be very careful about what they do. And I've lived experience in this of having MLAs and the premier say specific things that target people. And so I would caution MLAs of specifically doing that. And just because it was a principal who launched that recall petition, so be it. It could have been any citizen within that constituency who wanted to launch that. They were just the ones who got there first.
Great. I don't see any other questions online here. Do we have any other questions in the room? Okay, I think we can go ahead and leave it